Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. I don't have a recorded spiel for the introduction to this podcast like a lot of people do, so for whatever reason you're here, thank you for joining me, whether that's just to find out more about why we're here or to see where you will go when you pass on, or to know where a loved one has gone, or just to learn some skills or wisdom as to how to better cope with life on this planet. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. It doesn't matter why you're here, if you're just curious or whatever reason. Everyone is welcome, and I appreciate you listening in. So today, as per usual, I've got an experience from the NDEF website. This one's from a guy called Steven L. It's a very brief one. I like to read ones that have a bit of length and a bit of substance to them usually, but I just got halfway through reading another one which is quite long, and it's just, it wasn't put together very well, and it was confusing, and got like halfway through it, and I thought, this one's I'm not enjoying it, so you guys probably won't enjoy it either. So I gave up, and I have decided to stick with this new one I've found. It's just a shorty, but sometimes these short ones can be just as profound. They all have a bit of a message to them, and I hope you can enjoy this one. And let's see. I haven't read it myself. I've just quickly gone through it, and yeah. Anyway, let's go. Steven L. Steven L's near-death experience from the ndurf.org website. I came home from work really late in the morning, around 3 a.m. I had to get up that early that morning because I had to go to the bank, and it was a Saturday. I went in, got my paycheck, cashed it, and then I went to a restaurant and had a wonderful meal. Then I drove back into town on the service street to go to a counselling appointment because I was trying to get my life back together. I came underneath the overpass of the freeway, and I was coming to the intersection where the green light was in my favour. I looked, and no one was in the intersection. I got probably a quarter of the way into the intersection, and I noticed out of my peripheral on my left side, this driver was going at a very, very high rate of speed. They later estimated his speed to be about 65 or 75 miles per hour. He impacted the driver's side of my car, and that made me slide around a telephone pole, probably around 10 to 15 feet away. My car literally wrapped around the pole. The car I was in had a separate lap belt from the shoulder belt. The lap belt literally cut my body into my body, and all I remember after looking at my windshield and seeing it all crashed out was this young man. I don't know who he was. He was in blue overalls. He reached through the car, looked, and saw that the lap belt was cutting into me. He grabbed onto the lap belt and pulled it away from me, probably around 5 to 6 inches. And I know for a fact that the lap belt was locked, so he couldn't have done that. He took a knife and he slit the lap belt and removed it. From there, I blacked out again. Next thing I know, there is a paramedic sitting in the passenger seat with me, talking to me really softly. He told me he was going to put a surgical collar on me, and he does. Then he tells me about the jaws of life and how they're going to have to cut through the car to get me out. I said, okay. And he managed to remove my left arm, which was locked in a death grip on the steering wheel. He placed my hand on my lap and put a sheet over me. And he climbed under the sheet with me, and he told me that I was going to hear some noises. Then I heard some loud noises inside the car. The jaws of life were pretty hard and it shook the whole vehicle. The driver's door popped open within a few minutes. They laid a backboard in the car and the paramedics say, "We got blood." I didn't know where I was bleeding from or what I was bleeding from. But I had a scalp laceration, but what I believed was I had blood coming out of my ear. I felt I was literally dying right there. They laid me carefully on the backboard and taped my head to the backboard and then put the backboard on a gurney. They wheeled me probably about 15 feet away to the ambulance. I remember that the back doors to the ambulance were open. I also remember that it was bright, and I told the paramedics that I needed to close my eyes. However, the paramedic said I need to keep my eyes open. I told him that I needed to close my eyes, and I closed my eyes, and I remember a bump going back into the ambulance, and the ambulance disappeared. Next thing, I remember seeing myself above the ambulance. I saw where the accident was, where the police cars were, where the fire department officials were, the people cleaning up the glass. I even saw where the guy that hit me was, and his car. I saw them working on him, getting his road rash on his arm from the airbag that had been deployed. Next thing I know, it's like Star Trek in a warp speed kind of thing. I was literally flown. Maybe flown is not a good word. I was transported fast into the light. I went into this room that had no dimensions, but had a 360-degree movie screen around me. These light bodies came up to me. This one light body came up to me and looked at me and asked me one question 4 times. Throughout this entire time, I am watching my whole entire life review going on all around me, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not a good thing. I'm seeing everybody I'm beating up. I'm seeing everybody I'm yelling at, lying to. I'm watching their faces, and their faces are morphing into me. So I'm lying to myself, or I am beating myself up, or stealing myself. This light being is asking me these 4 questions. And the questions are, who are you? I told the being who I was. I told him straight out that I'm Steven. The light being shook his head and asked me again, who are you? I had gone into the light angry, and I was pissed that I died. I felt I had more stuff to do on the earth. I was really violently angry. So I told this light being again, don't you know who I am? I am Steven. And then the being again said, no, who are you? I'm saying who I am, but I'm saying this being was a he, but I really don't think this being had a gender. I'm watching my whole life flash before my eyes, and it's starting to sink in who I actually am. I tried to tell him what job I did. The light being again asked me for the 4th time, who are you? I finally said the most intelligent thing in the world. I said, I don't know. I don't know who I am. The light being nodded his head, and it said, yes, you are love. That's all you are. You are nothing more than love. The anger that had built up inside me had washed completely away. I looked at my life image and I judged myself as not worthy to be there. I asked and I said, I'd like to stay. They said, maybe another time, but not now. You have a mission to do on the earth and you must do it. No one else can do it but you. I thought about it and I said, okay, I'll do it. My mission is basically to share my story down on earth, to tell everybody that you are loved too. I told the light body that I would do my mission. It said, we will be in touch once more. Next thing I know, I'm feeling cold metal on my back, and I thought that was an odd feeling. Then I heard the man's voice on my right side, where most of the damage to my body was done, and he said, are you back with us? Are you going to hear some noise? You're going to hear some noise. Don't worry, you're safe. Then I heard this shoop going through my head. And what I found out was they were stapling my scalp back together. I spent about 8 hours in the trauma room. At least my body did. I would say I spent about 2.5 hours in the light. My whole life before and my whole life now are totally different. In 2011, I was meditating one time and I heard this voice in my head say, hello. I thought I was going crazy. I was going to call a psychiatrist and tell him to put me on some medicine. This voice came into my head and said, hello, it is time. Your mission is now. And then I remembered everything that happened with the accident. I remembered what I needed to do. And I have literally been sharing this story with whoever will hear me. So that's the end of Stephen's experience. Not a hugely detailed, complex experience by any stretch. So yeah, let's go through that again. So he's driving home from work, and he gets into a bit of a traffic accident, and ends up having to be removed from the car by jaws of life, which sounds like it would be pretty terrifying for anyone to have to experience that. And he's conscious while this is happening, so he's aware that he is being rescued for something pretty serious. But being in a car accident like that and then have to have some kind of heavy machinery come out to rescue you would be traumatic to say the least. I've been, I've never really been in a serious accident involving another car like that before. I've run into a pole on the freeway and needed to be rescued by a tow truck, but never to the extent where there's police and fire and ambulance involved. So touch wood, it's enough to make you drive that little bit more carefully, but even when you do that, I guess sometimes it's unavoidable, like is described in this experience. He's just approaching an intersection with a green light, and therefore he thinks it's safe to go through. But as he does, out of the corner of his eye, he sees this car zooming towards him at 65, 75 miles an hour, which I don't know. In Australia, I think that's we use kilometers, so yeah, that's fast. That's fast, and that would do a fair bit of damage. So the car makes contact. It hits him on the driver's side and pushes the car towards a telephone pole or some sort of lighting pole or something, and the car gets wrapped around that. So then, he sees this man come to help him. That he tries to take his seatbelt off, but realizes it's stuck or um, still plugged in. So they try to get that off, and they do, but he's obviously pretty jammed into this car and can't get out. And the next thing he knows, there's paramedics there telling him to calm down. We're about to use this bit of machinery to cut you out. And this is kind of when he leaves his body. He says that his transition to this other dimension in his experience, and everyone has their own unique one, is it's kind of like a Star Wars thing. So he sees this warped speed of light. He's flying through the sky, and the way I picture that is, like those movies Star Wars or Star Trek, where the stars suddenly become a blur because they're moving so quickly, and yeah, that's the way I picture this. Then he goes into this room that has a 360-degree movie screen around him. It doesn't say if he can see this whole screen at once, like he has 360-degree vision himself, but he says he's in this room. There's a screen that goes all the way around, and then he sees these light beings come up and they ask him a question. And this is the part of the experience that I guess drew me a little bit to this experience in terms of what I liked about it, because as I was flicking through, I saw that there was this brief interaction between this human soul and some other light being, and this conversation was the being was asking the human soul, who do you think you are? And of course, the human soul starts going through the physical reality that it's just been in. It says its physical name, Steven. Then it starts to say what job it has, all these things that our ego identifies with on this planet, but in reality is not who we truly are. It's just this role we play, this uniform we wear doesn't define who we are in an eternal sense. But this is interesting for me because this human is in soul form and yet is still identifying with its physical reality. And this light being this human soul's talking to is trying to explain, look, you might be a part of this physical realm at the moment, but in reality, this is not who you are. Your eternal self is not Stephen. You just sort of think, at what point does a soul detach from those identification with its human form and naturally realize itself that that is not who it truly is, and when does it get to the point where there needs to be no other external guides, entities, beings to coach you back to the realization of what you truly are? And is it a natural progression? Like, do you need some educating as when you cross over as to your true essence, or does it just naturally, does your form just naturally, slowly release any attachment to the ego and to the physical realm, and does it slowly accept that that was not it, and it is now in another dimension, and it is now an eternal being, and that human experience was just that. It was just an experience that is now over, and now the next stage of life comes. But I would love this conversation that this light being has with this human to go into a lot more depth apart from just this one question, who are you? But anyway, that's all that this conversation is about. And in the end, the light being ends up saying, you are love. It's as simple as that. You are love. You are not your human form. You are much, much more than that. And yeah, so that's the answer to the question. And he says while this is all happening, he's having a life review. And in this life review, it sounds like it's a pretty negative one. He's seeing himself beat other people up. He's seeing himself lying at other people. And then he's watching their faces as they do this from his perspective. But then the life review, as it so often does, warps into this different experience where he's actually this other person watching himself lie to that other person. Like he jumps from his body to the victim's body and experiences his violence or his dishonesty from their point of view. So it's it doesn't happen to everyone. You know, from the experiences I've read, some people don't get a life review at all, but when they do, quite often this is what happens. You get to experience the way you acted in your life from another person's point of view, and I guess that's a very good way of teaching empathy to someone who might not have any, or just to you know show how your actions can lead to other people experience in the world in a certain way, and then that doesn't have to be negative like in this situation. Good things will obviously have a positive influence on that person's inner being and inner state, and they will be more likely to practice that themselves in their next interaction, and so on. It just blows on like ripples in a pond. It goes out and spreads throughout the community. So every little action we have has a big impact. Um, yeah, that's a really brief experience, and it finishes up with the light being saying, uh, we will be in touch once more. This is your mission. You go back to your body. You tell them what happened with this near-death experience, and remind everyone that that is who they are. They are love at their essence, and this is the essence they will always be, and this is the lesson, the essence that they re-identify with once they are no longer absorbed by the experience of this physical realm, which distracts, I guess, from that identifying of knowing who you are out at your core. And this man, I think it's a man, yeah, Stephen. He takes this pretty seriously. He says, "Look, I get my mission now. It's to spread with all you guys, me and you, listening. That is who we are." And it's a very simple message. It doesn't go into any great length or use any language that goes over the top, but I think it's nice and simple and to the point, and we get the message. So yeah, thank you for listening. I will leave it there. Nice, quick, short episode. But yeah, I hope you got something out of that. I certainly did. I hope your experience is cruising along and you're resonating with these messages we get in these near-death experiences, and finding some of the answers to the questions that we all have. And there seems to be no set reason for. There's no set answer, and we're all on our unique journey, and we're all gonna end up going to this place I read about every week in the end. So I guess in the meantime, if we can't find or have an experience like this ourselves, we can hear what other people say about it and feel with our intuition what feels right and what feels like it's a place that you can agree that could possibly exist, um, and hopefully know that this experience we're having as human is just that, just an experience, which is a temporary thing, and eventually we get to go to our real home, and there I think it'll be a lot safer from the negativity and darkness that this world can um, put us through. So let's hope that that's true, and continue to work on um, being as positive and loving as we can. Well, that's kind of my mission, is just to just to send out the love, and to um, just to nothing major, just to be a good person around those who are right in front of me, because that's all you can do. So yeah, on that note, I will send you all my love, and look forward to talking to you next week. Goodbye.